3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Queen Stage. We're here to spotlight the athletes, stories, and action in women's cycling, giving the sport the attention it deserves. And we're going to do so with the quality, depth, and personality the sport demands.
I'm Rosael Torres-Davis.
I'm Betsy Welch.
I'm Anne-Marije Rook.
And I'm Molly Hurford. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Queen Stage Women's Cycling Podcast, where we are covering the Super Bowl of cycling, the big show, the Tour de France Femmes, avec Zwift. We are going stage by stage to bring you all the racing action. Before we get into it, make sure you are subscribed wherever you listen to podcasts, and please leave us a 5-star rating and review. We appreciate it very much. Also, huge thank you to Ruckus Composites for making the show a reality. Built on a mission to push the boundaries of carbon fiber performance, Ruckus Composites and Aerospace are leaders in engineering, research, repair, and inspection. I'm Molly Hurford, and here we are at Stage 5, halfway through. But before we get into today, we just want to give a big shout out to Ellen van Dijk. She just announced her retirement from the women's peloton today. She is not at the Tour de France Femmes because she was still recovering from a crash a couple months ago. Rook, talk to us about the retirement announcement and, why this is very sad for women's cycling, for new fans who maybe haven't seen her in action over the years.
Yeah, so Ellen van Dijk has had a career of 2 decades, during which she became probably the best pure time trialist out there. She won 3 world championships in that discipline, 4 European championships. I think she also has 4 UCI team time trial titles. She's just the absolute best against the clock. She was a world record hour in 2020. Too as well. And yeah, I think throughout the year, she really became a specialist in that discipline, but also one of the most respected and reliable domestiques out in the peloton. You knew that when Ellen van Dijk was at the front, that they must be going really fast, and pretty dangerous breakaway rider as well. She's won Tour Flanders. She's won the GC at the Vuelta, at the Baloise Ladies Tour. So yeah, she was a very decorated rider, and she's going out while still very competitive. I think she got a couple wins already. This one win at least this season, and still always very competitive. So she's just decided that her time has come. She said she was looking around the peloton and she still knew Marianne Vos and Anne van der Breggen, and the rest were people literally half her age. And so, she's a mom. She just doesn't enjoy the risk of crashing. It just takes that much longer to recover when she does crash. She's had 2 significant crashes in the last calendar year alone. And so, yeah, time's up. It's come. She's ready for whatever's next in her life.
Yeah, it's always the interesting discussion of, is it better to burn out or fade away, to go with the Kurt Cobain-y kind of vibe there. And we've actually heard a couple discussions about it on Flow Bike's announcers. So the Eurosport announcers have been talking about that a bit with some of the recent retirement announcements. And yeah, is it better to go out when you're on top and you can kind of choose it? Or, do you wait for the moment where you kind of have to, or you don't really have an option? Rosael, what's your take?
Yeah. No, it's also Little Trek is losing 2 really good riders with Lizzie Deignan and now Ellen van Dijk leaving that team. So yeah, they're going to have to be looking for replacements for those 2. But yeah, what a big teammate to lose. I always remember her chasing the breaks at Paris-Roubaix in the last 2 editions and doing such good work for the team. So she will be dearly missed.
And I just want to add, too, that I think the retirement of both Lizzie Deignan and Ellen van Dijk is a good time to sort of pause and remember just how long women have been professional bike racers. Because I think now with the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift in its 4th year, we can kind of forget that women's bike racing didn't just start, right? 4 years ago. These women, like Lizzie, like Ellen, like Anne van der Breggen, like Vos, have been racing for decades. And so, it gives me chills that they're retiring. Kudos to them for being around and sticking it out when things were not great. They lived through the dark days, and their leaving now is women's cycling is, we're calling it a movement. So that's got to feel cool to them. And also just credit to their tenacity for being there and really building it for the rest of the riders.
Absolutely. They're the generation that allowed the current generation to have careers, to make a living racing their bikes. Because of them, we know it's even an option to be a professional cyclist. Because I remember Foss, even her tagline used to be full-time hobby cyclist. And nowadays, no, this is professional as professional gets. And so the generation of Ellen van Dijk and the idea of having a 20-year career, that's impressive in any field, but especially in professional sports.
Yeah, absolutely. And okay, coming into stage 5 of today's race, our first hilly stage, we're going to have to open with a bit of a low light. The abandonments. So earlier in the race, sorry everybody, it's gonna get better. I promise. It's gonna get happier. But unfortunately, Kristen Faulkner of EF Education Oatly is out after a crash during the neutral start. At least Balsamo of Lidl Trek also out. Uno X Mobility is down 2 riders. I mean, what does this mean for the teams? I think this is a huge blow to a couple of the team's GC chances. For me, I was really thinking about how this affects EF in particular, right? They have Cedrine Kerbal in the top 10 of the GC, and yesterday we were even calling her as a potential winner for today's stage. But then we actually saw EF Education's Allison Jackson in the breakaway early on in the race. I'm going to be honest, I actually found it really funny as the commentators were talking about Kristen Faulkner dropping out and kind of how sad that was. It would show Allison just grinning, smiling and waving at the camera. I was like,
she's having a great tour. She's having so much fun.
She's having fun, and I love that for her. But I mean, I actually would have expected their team to be on the radio being like, no, you need to go back and help Cedrine to, stay up in the GC rankings. And what do you all think the thoughts for EF Education Oatly are at this point, kind of down one rider and with someone in the top 10, but maybe not necessarily a true contender for the win by any stretch?
Yeah, I think their best bet will be going for maybe stage win with Cedrine Kerbal. I'm not sure how much Allison Jackson will be helpful in the mountains, but I think their best bet is just to make the best out of the 4 days that are left and maybe win a stage in the mountains.
For sure. And with all of the abandonments, it feels like every day we're starting a list of who's dropped out, unfortunately. I think this is a really good reason we need to mention that maybe we need to start talking about teams of 8 riders. We talked about this a little bit, I think, yesterday when we were talking. Do the teams need more riders at these races? Or can women's cycling, is it big enough yet that we can have 8 riders? I would argue yes. I don't really see why we can't add one more rider to each team. If the men can have that many, certainly the women should have that many as well.
Can I just jump in and say, I've been getting quite a few questions about these dropouts, these abandonments, the illnesses, the crashes. A lot of people are wondering, do women crash more often than the men? Are they just not ready for this type of racing? And I just want to hit that head on and say that, no, they do not crash any more than we see at the Tour de France Hommes. I just think that we get less coverage. And so we get these updates all at the beginning of the coverage. And it seems perhaps more drastic, but I don't think it's any more than what happens at the Tour de France Hommes. But as you're saying, the men also get to start with more riders. And so when they lose a rider or two, it has less of an impact as it does on the teams here that are racing on the women's race. So don't be alarmed. The women don't crash more often than the men. And there does seem to be a bug going around. I'm hearing from reporters on the ground that there's just a little bit of a virus sweeping through the peloton, which is also causing a lot of these dropouts.
Yeah, and that's why we saw PFP has had a mask over her handlebars as she was warming up. So she's clearly walking around wearing a mask, trying to prevent that. And I actually completely agree with you. I made a note that I'm actually getting a little bit concerned about whether it's the commentators or what I'm seeing on Instagram or any of that, this narrative that, oh, some of the women are maybe racing too much. They have too many races now that they could do. And I think it's getting perilously close to the women can't run marathons because it's bad for our ovaries kind of thing of like, oh, we need to protect the women from having too many race days on the calendar. No, we don't. Like, just
well,
no.
Yes and no. I think I want to push back a little bit. I do think that we don't have big enough team rosters yet to fill a 6, 7, 8 rider team for each big race. So I do think we need to control the calendar. Otherwise, you're going to get the same thing as you see in tennis, where they just have to perform too often.
And yeah, I'm just going to go where I was going to go in like a few minutes, which is a highlight, because this is great. And we're all talking about this. And I think the commentators, while I agree with you, Molly, that they were getting a little like doom and gloom, and it was sort of like they're dropping like flies, and why is everyone sick, and why is everyone crashing? I do want to credit the Peacock commentators for also zooming out a little bit and talking about the realities of the modern day women's peloton, which is the depth is there, but the budgets aren't there. Thus, the team sizes aren't there. Thus, the keeping everyone healthy by only racing them every few months isn't there. So it's like, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. This is the growth we've wanted. This is the attention we want, but it's not all catching up at the same rate. And so I think those realities are really important to acknowledge. It's not like women are fragile. They just have to race more because their teams are smaller and they need to be at the races to get the attention so that perhaps the teams could grow bigger. But my like actual shout out within that shout out to the commentators is they also mentioned menstrual cycles and how this is a very real thing for female racers. And if we have small teams that are spread very thinly across a pretty packed calendar, which is a good thing. Women are having to race through all phases of their menstrual cycle. We know that they're more prone to injury and illness during certain phases. These are the conversations that we should be having and that are also really important to like nurturing a respect and appreciation for women's racing, its growing pains, its uniqueness. So I'm shouting out Hannah and Anthony for talking about that today. Also, Molly, as you reminded me, there's a lot of riders that have been speaking out about that. I think a lot of women are choosing their coaches based on how much their coaches pay attention to things like menstrual cycle and training through your period and stuff like that. So, there's a highlight in the midst of not even a low light, just the realities of, modern day women's racing.
Yeah, and ultimately, the question about whether teams should be bigger, the tour should be longer, or stages themselves should be longer is a question for the peloton and the riders and the directors sportifs. Like, they're the ones who can really answer those questions and look at their budget, look at what the players that they have at hand, and see if that could actually happen. So yeah, we really have to consider them.
Absolutely. And I do think next year, it's a little bit like every year, like next year is going to be different. Next year is going to be different. But next year really will be different because we won't have the women's Giro butting up so close to the Tour de France Femmes. And I think that's going to make a massive difference in how riders are able to show up. Yeah. Okay, so done with the lowlights. Rosael, talk us through this actually truly fascinating, fun, exciting stage.
Yeah, it was everything we wanted it to be. And the GC, man, like people were saying the race was going to start in the mountains tomorrow, but no, it started today. So I really got to see that. So stage 5 of the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift was the longest stage of the race. That's 165.8 kilometers. And we did, again, had a lot of tailwinds along the course, which may have contributed to some of those crashes we saw. I think we also heard from Lorena Wiebes, also crashed in one of the feed zones. sprinters. And you mentioned before that we have Kristen Faulkner, Elisa Balsamo have a crash in the neutral zone and abandon the race. But anyway, as expected, we had an early break form with riders like Allison Jackson, Brody Chapman, Catalina Soto Campos, the Chilean champion again there, among other riders. And meanwhile, the sprinters were eyeing those points in the intermediate sprints, and we saw Lorena Wiebes and Mariana Bosch contest those, with Wiebes taking first. Then about with 35 kilometers to go, that's where I would say the racing really started, when they hit the first categorized climb and the pace just really lifted in the peloton. Movistar, having missed the break, they were doing a lot of work in the front because they really believed this was a stage for Liana Lippert. But no other teams were really contributing to the chase. And then as we continued to enter the mountainous section, most of the break was reeled in. And the last person from the original break standing was Brody Chapman. And then she was joined. What happened was in the peloton, then there were attacks happening, and some of those riders joined Brody Chapman for a little while. But Canyon SORAM got to the front and started chasing that break, and they reeled it in. They were also protecting their leader and reigning champion, Kasia Niewiadoma. With about 10 kilometers to go, that was really exciting because we saw all the GC favorites, all the top dogs getting in the front of the race. At 8.5 kilometers, we have bonus seconds on another sprint, and we saw Lecourt take 6 seconds, Pauline Ferrand-Prevot took 4 seconds, and Kasia Niewiadoma took 2 seconds, which I think is really important to note that because Demi Vollering missed out there. But then right after that sprint, we had Demi Vollering launch an acceleration that narrowed down the selection, and that put Mariana Bosch in a precarious position. She was a little bit out of contention, losing time in the back. And then we saw Sarah Gigante, teammate of Kim Lecourt, of IG Insurance Soudal, taking control in the front. And Anna van der Breggen picked up some Queen of the Mountain points. And let's see, then we hit 4.5 kilometers to go, and that was the descent. And we saw Niewiadoma really killing that descent and briefly putting space to Pauline Ferrand-Prevot, which is not a bad descender.
Did that surprise you? It totally surprised me to see Pauline being rather cautious and hesitant on that descent.
Yeah. I wish maybe we'll have to look at some post-race interviews to see what happened there. But anyway, she was able to catch back on. And then with 1.5 kilometers to go, we saw the group of 7 riders, right? The Niewiadoma, Vollering, Roy Jackers, Anna van der Breggen, Ferrand-Prevot, Lecourt, and Gigante. And then IAG Insurance Soudal was at an advantage with 2 riders in that break. With 700 meters to go, Anna van der Breggen was the first to launch an attack, but it didn't really stick. They were able to still stay together. Then Lecourt was the first one to start the sprint to the line, and she was getting it, and she celebrated early and almost didn't get it, but ultimately she was the winner of stage 5, with Demi Vollering finishing in second and Anna van der Breggen in third. Go ahead, Betsy.
For those of you who didn't watch or haven't yet seen it, we were all sort of like a little WTF because it did look like Kim celebrated early. It really did. And in her post-race interview, she addressed it to clear up any confusion. She said, "I knew I had it." She said, "It can be much harder to tell on TV. So those of you who are watching may have thought I celebrated early." But she's like, I knew I had it.
Yeah, but it was good to see Vollering carry such speed. Had that finish been just a few meters longer, Vollering could have won.
Yeah, it was great to see her back after the crash and after those question marks about how she'd be doing. And it was really nice to see her at the front. Also, Anna van der Breggen. Like, we were talking about her yesterday. We're like hoping to see her. And it was nice to see her out in that mix. And perhaps this is a little preview of what's to come.
Yeah, and I deeply loved the tactics of that sprint where you first had, Anna van der Breggen kind of started it. Then there was like this beautiful pause for a few seconds where everyone just like really slowed and was like eyeing each other. And then Kasia went. And for some reason, I love a tactical pause in a sprint. It reminds me of Cyclocross Worlds 2021 when it was Voss and Brand literally like track standed before they sprinted to the finish. And it was just like, so anytime I get to see that, I am absolutely edge of my seat thrilled. And I loved that they did that today.
Also, Anna had to go when she did. And then unfortunately, Sarah Gigante kind of pinched her in, which took out any momentum of that sprint, which kind of made her be like, okay, well, now I just have to ride it out. But someone like Anna has to go early because she doesn't have that speed that maybe a Kim LaCourt or PFP has. But yeah, it was a very good, very exciting sprint.
Definitely. Should we get into what the sprint did to the GC updates? Because we finally are shaking everything up.
Tell us about it.
We expected today's stage to shake things up, and it really did. We did see Marianne Vos really try to fight for her yellow jersey today when she got dropped and tried to get back. But alas, she lost her jersey, and now it's Kim LaCourt who's back in yellow. Pauline Ferrand-Prevot is now second in the GC, 18 seconds behind, and Demi Vollering has crested into the top three, 23 seconds behind LaCourt. The green points jersey is still on Wiebes's back. She struggled today, as we expected she would. She was quite a bit behind the front pack, but still finished. And we talked yesterday a little bit about the points. You wanted to do some math. Molly, do you have an update for us on whether or not it's possible for Lorena Wiebes to still lose the green jersey?
I believe someone did the math, and I think it's still possible for her to lose it to Vos if Vos gets everything and Wiebes drops way back, where she's not gaining any points. Because she's now, what did we finish at today?
40 points behind. She's 40 points
40 points behind. So
yeah.
If Wiebes struggles in the mountains and Vos can stay active in the mountains, she doesn't necessarily have to finish with the lead group or anything. She just needs to be with the, higher up and actually in the points, because, there's always a chance Wiebes is just going to be so far back from the points. So I think Vos could get it. No one else can, is the math on that one.
Okay. And then the polka dot jersey, the Queen of the Mountains jersey, it's still being held by Elisa Bay, but that could still change. We've got quite a bit of climbing left, and Silke Smulders and Brody Chapman round out that top three, so we could still see a shift there.
Yeah. I think, coming back to the GC, I was pretty surprised to see Demi Vollering leapfrog up into third there, because she was very, kind of secretive the whole race. And I think that's probably tactical as much as anything, even just as far as playing it very quiet, kind of sitting towards the back of the peloton, and then boom, suddenly she's out front. I think the commentators were even asking where she was maybe a minute before she suddenly was there and going. So very well played to FDJ Suez for keeping her in the mix, but quiet the entire stage.
Yeah.
Full ninja mode in that black jersey.
That honestly made me happy. I've been feeling for Demi for myriad reasons, and I think she needed that probably today to sort of get up there and remind people that she is here to race. She is one to watch.
Yeah, and I think she did take a bit of a beating on social media with all of the comments from her team, and admittedly from her too.
Totally.
And everyone in the peloton was just like, "Oh, come on." So I think, we'll never know what exactly is going on in her head, but I generally think she has a good heart, good vibe overall, and very, very nice to see her back in the mix, and hopefully not letting all of this get to her.
I have to say, I love this GC list that I'm looking at. Like we've talked about, this is sort of the racing that I think we have all been waiting 5 stages for. And the top 5, we've got Kim, Pauline, Demi, Kasia, and Anna. And it's just it's hard to even pick a favorite amongst those, because they all, for different reasons, have a lot of opportunity over the next 4 days.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really funny to see Demi Vollering and Kasia Niewiadoma are in a sandwich between LaCourt and Ferrand-Prevot, and below Van der Breggen and Marianne Vos. It's just so interesting. And I'm just noticing that Kasia now moved below Demi Vollering, because I guess Vollering got some points in that finishing third place.
Yeah, everyone's been saying it's going to be a two-up race, you know? Everyone's going to say Kasia and Demi. And I'm really hoping that we've got some breakout riders, as we're seeing in Kim LaCourt, and maybe, you know, a much bigger GC race than initially anticipated.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, mentioning Kim LaCourt, we're talking about our queen of the stage. I mean, we really have to give it to Kim LaCourt, but we're actually going to split it. We're going to say AG Soudal, or AG Insurance Soudal, gets the queen of the stage as a collective team, because, you know, as they said, they had a plan for this stage and they executed it flawlessly. I mean, you can always have a plan and you can always execute it. And even if you execute perfectly, it doesn't go the way you want it to. This one really, really did. So Kim LaCourt and teammate Sarah Gigante, just absolutely tactically beautiful, and so happy that they managed to pull off a plan, because it doesn't happen that way very often.
Well, and they're a team that's often overlooked. You know, everyone's looking at the big teams, and if you look at what they've actually done these last two Tour de France Femmes, like they've been very active and definitely a team to watch.
I admit, I was sort of wondering if Sarah Gigante was going to come back after her Giro. And then there she was today, just like on the front, working for Kim perfectly. So props to Sarah, too, for maybe the first four stages were a bit of a rest for her, and now she's ready to go climbing.
Yeah, no, ready. And it will be really interesting to see how that teammate relationship plays out in the mountains and how much she can help LaCourt there. Because imagine, like, I'm just looking at the standings now, and what if our race comes down to Kim LaCourt versus Pauline Ferrand-Prevot, when everybody thought it would be Demi Vollering and Niewiadoma, but the real mountains will say.
I mean,
yeah, why not?
Why not? Shake up. That's good for the sport, you know? It's really good for the sport.
Imagine like a small island like Mauritius winning the Tour de France Femmes. That will be insane.
Well, isn't that an interesting choice, too? Because initially, you know, when it comes to AG Soudal, you're looking at someone like Ashley Moolman-Paseo, who's been known to be a very good climber. They decided to leave her at home and go for Kim LaCourt instead. And she's proving why.
Yeah. Okay, shall we get into our no dumb questions? Rosael, what do we have today?
Yes, that's me today. Well, the commentators were talking about this a little bit, and I'm going to talk about altitude training, basically. That's my question today. Like, why do we do it? How does it help riders? Because we know that Kasia Niewiadoma has been doing it. Well, a lot of the riders have just been going to altitude camps. For example, Pauline Ferrand-Prevot didn't race a lot of stage races, but she has spent a lot of time at altitude, and we hope it pays off when they enter the real mountains. But yeah, like, what is altitude training, Molly?
Yeah, so basically the theory, well, it's twofold. One is if you are racing at altitude, so some of the it's more for like mountain bikers who are racing in Andorra. You know, for Americans, it's if you're looking at like the Leadville mountain bike race or run, you want to be prepared for altitude. It's thinner air up there is the thing. So you need to be able to exist at that higher altitude without all of the downstream negative side effects of being at altitude, which can be pretty brutal. But also, even if you are racing at sea level, altitude training can be helpful because it improves red blood cell count and generally improves your aerobic engine. That said, altitude training also takes a lot out of you. So you have seen a lot more riders even this year switching to heat training instead of altitude training, just because it's more accessible for a lot of teams that can't necessarily afford altitude camps, or who don't want to sleep in altitude tents. As someone who slept in an altitude tent for a year ahead of racing Leadville, I can safely say it sucks. It sucks so hard. It messes up your sleep. It's terrible. If you're doing it with another person in there, it's hot. It's just unpleasant. The altitude tent, just basically you're sleeping in, like, picture Dexter serial killer-esque, like, clear plastic that goes around your bed and then a machine that's sucking out the oxygen.
Do you think it worked?
And riders
did it work, Molly?
Oh, I mean, I was in third till I sprained my ankle, so yes, I think it worked.
Wait, why am I not winning everything? Because I sleep in an altitude tent, i.e. my own bedroom every night. What the hell?
Yeah. Well, I think that's why you see riders who live at altitude perform real well at the altitude races.
Yeah, if listeners want to see what an altitude tent look like, I think Casa Newadoma is sponsored by some brand that makes these. So you can go to her Instagram and take a look. I think her husband, Finney, built it up for her, and she had been sleeping there before the Tour de France started.
Doesn't she live in Colorado with him? Why does she need an altitude tent?
She does.
Not high enough.
Minimal gains.
Boulder.
She spends some time out
Yeah,
here.
not high enough. Not high enough. So altitude training is, generally speaking, kind of the most accepted, like, easy way to boost fitness gains without necessarily having to work harder is kind of why riders do it.
But you
And
mentioned-
yeah, you're right, Pia.
Sorry, Molly. You mentioned heat training being sort of an alternative. Does that have the same physiologic effect of leading to more red blood cell production?
Theoretically, yes, and it's a little bit lower stress on the body because you can heat train, but then like cool off afterwards. So you're seeing a lot more cyclists, a lot more runners that are doing like indoor training, wearing, like windbreakers inside, just getting super sweaty, either on the stationary bike or on the treadmill, and then even going in saunas or hot tubs afterwards. And that way it's just forcing your body to do all of this extra work and then also to cool itself down afterwards. So, it's all these marginal gains,
Athletes.
weird things.
I've been HIIT training a little bit this summer because I decided this year to only put an AC in my bedroom and not installed in the rest of my apartment because I just feel like the world is ending. And I'm like, I can't get used to all these comforts. So I'm going to get used to being warm in my own house. So when I go outside, I'm not like comparing it to the comfort of my own home. But yeah, some people think I'm crazy for doing that, but it's okay. You don't have to visit me in my apartment.
Well, it's funny. We actually turned on our air conditioner for like the first time in months the other day. And then we walked outside and it was boiling hot out. And we were like, are we getting soft now? Because we were dying outside. So I agree. Heat adaptation.
Seriously, it has made it a lot. I've noticed that it made it a lot easier to get out and run if I didn't have time to run in the morning and do mountain bikes. And also, I used to do ice socks when I was racing bikes, and I'm doing ice socks when I'm riding my bike just for fun because it does keep me cooler. Yeah.
Get hot or get high. Your call. Okay, next question. And actually, I don't have the answer for this. Does anyone else? Is there prize money for the winner of each stage?
There is.
Is it the same as the men's?
It is certainly not the same as the men's. It never has. And sometimes I did the math on this last year, but I thought if Tadej Pogačar in the men's race had given up, I think, one or two of his stage winnings, he would have doubled the entire prize purse of the women's Tour de France Femmes. So it's we've come a long way in women's cycling, but prize money is definitely one of these areas that could still use a lot of improvement.
Yeah, it's why it also makes going for stage wins so interesting and good for the team because, yes, they do have minimum salaries now in the peloton, but that money that sprinter or whatever stage winner gets usually is split up between the team, and it just increases the amount of money people are making at the end of the year.
To slightly less than very poor salaries, yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe a stage win is like a couple €1,000, paid 10 deep. No, maybe paid 20 deep, actually.
It's 4,000 for the stage winner.
For the winner.
Yeah.
And a stuffy, of course.
That can't be discounted. Yeah.
Don't discount the squirrel.
Okay, and then our other question, positioning in the peloton. Why is it important? What's it like to sit at the back? Is it actually easy to sit in the back? Because I feel like everyone always talks about like the free ride at the back. Is the middle the most dangerous?
There is no free ride.
Yeah, let's just dispel that one right away. No free rides. Where does one want to be in the peloton? Rosael, any thoughts?
I think You just want to be moving all the time. You want to be, it depends what rider are you, because if you're a GC rider, you have to be as close to the front as possible without getting in the wind, just so you know what's happening in the race. It's very easy to be in the back of a peloton and not realize that somebody went off the front and you should be chasing or communicating with your team about it. You want to be close to your teammates as well. But also, it's just like, again, mathematically, if you are in the back of the peloton, there's a great number of riders in front of you, and that just increases the chances of somebody crashing in front of you and you getting caught in that crash. Go ahead, Rook.
Well, and the other thing that as you mentioned about being in the back, there's a lot of yo-yoing effect going on. So you're actually spending a lot of energy trying to just staying in there. Like the speed drops and then it accelerates. And so you're constantly moving back and forward versus keeping a steady rhythm. The best place to be is in the front of the pack, almost always. And the front of the pack being not at the very, very front, but, 2 or 3 or 4 down. There's a general attitude to saying that if you're not actively moving forward, you're going back. Because there's actually this kind of like washing machine effect happening. I'm doing a lot of hand movements that y'all can't see when you're listening to this, but there's a constant rotation that's happening, and people are always looking to move forward. You're always looking for a gap in the wheels ahead of you, just to make sure that you're always within that front, maybe 25% of the pack.
And then, Rook, do you want to get into our next stage preview? And also, before we do that, you have a shout out you need to give too.
Yeah, I want to shout out to one of our listeners, Lael Wilcox, who is arguably one of the best endurance riders in the world. And she's currently tackling the Transcontinental Endurance Race. It's a 5,000-kilometer race through Europe, and there's 100 women participating this year, which is the largest peloton they've had yet. And it's just really great that she's spending half an hour a day with us.
A lot of podcasts to listen to on a ride like that.
Yeah. And we're all rooting for you, Lael.
It's wild. I follow her on Instagram, and it's wild to see how happy she is almost always. She really enjoys what she does. It's great to see it.
It's also wild to realize that race is 4 times the length of the Tour de France Femmes in terms of distance.
And she's doing it solo and doing a bazillion miles a day.
Hey, you don't have to worry about positioning. You can just ride your own race. That's my kind of race.
There's that.
Well, and it's going to get strung out tomorrow as we hit the mountains, right, Rook?
Yeah, so if today was a prelude of what is to come, then tomorrow the real mountain stages are beginning. We are starting in Clermont-Ferrand, where the Tour de France Femmes started back in 2023. So it's a familiar sight for many of these riders. We're tackling 123.7 kilometers to Ambert with 2,350 meters of climbing. There are 4 categorized climbs, with Col de Béal being the biggest. It's a Cat 1 climb of 10.2 kilometers and 5.6%. It's topping out at just short of 1,400 meters. So we're getting up there. And this will be, in my opinion, a good day for a breakaway to form, a breakaway of more of the climbing riders, perhaps the riders that we saw today already. And I'm predicting a very selective group at the front of the race tomorrow. What are you thinking?
I agree with you. And I think one of the things I'm most curious to see tomorrow is Pauline Ferrand-Prevot on a very long climb. So I think we all think she'll be up there and believe she can, but like we actually haven't really seen her on a big, long climb like that. It's the 3rd climb, I think, that's the category 1. So that's the not hardest categorized climb, but the almost hardest categorized climb.
Yeah, it's the second hardest
hardest.
in the categorization. Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing Pauline pretty confident in her ability, but also just it feels like a bit of an unknown. I'm also, like I said, my heart's been a little hurt for Demi, just because the microscope that this woman has been under, that they're all under, that this race is under, it's gotta suck, to be frank. Like God bless social media for the good parts, but really it's a lot of bad vibes. And I'd like to see Demi climb too, similarly to Pauline. Like, we haven't seen Demi for a few months racing, and I'd like to see her get out there and do her thing. Kasia, same thing. These women, like we talked about with altitude training, they haven't been racing. They've been in the mountains. Like, let's see it. And I think what do we have? Those women are all top 4. Kim LaCourte, same thing. Put her out there. Like, she's such a good sprinty climber, but what about her long range climbing? And then too, we were kind of chatting about this offline, descending. Like, we're going to get to see some really fun descending. It actually looking at the profile, nothing like super sustained, but there will be a few steep descents, and there are some really good descenders in the peloton. So what do you guys think?
Well, the stage is also not dissimilar to last year's Morteau stage, which is where Cédrine Cabot made such a move. So could we see her in this race tomorrow be a big factor?
Yeah, I think so. I was going to go with Cédrine Cabot or a similar rider, because I'm thinking with 4 mountain stages to go, I think tomorrow they're going to let the break go. What do you guys think?
Depends on if
there's still going to be a bit of a fight at the end, right? But I think the winner in the end would be a breakaway winner.
Yeah, but it depends on if the GC riders are represented in that breakaway. Because, you got to have, everyone's going to want to have their GC rider positioned as best as possible. So if someone loses out, that breakaway is going to be reeled back in.
Do we get Rosael, that said, do we get a puck? Do we get a puck? Yeah, tomorrow, maybe?
We could. I'm just trying to see. The thing is, she may be too far ahead in the overall, which could cause like the peloton to reel her in if she's on a break. She's only 1 minute down in the GC. So I guess I'm looking at more riders who are more like 3 or 6 minutes down. For example, we have Justine Gekira with 3 minutes 53 seconds. Mavi Garcia at 6 minutes 8 seconds. Noemi Ruig, who won the Tour Down Under, is at 6 minutes 23 seconds. So I'm thinking if somebody from the break, it has to be somebody who's pretty down below in the general classification.
Yeah. And I mean, I know you mentioned Kasia, but holy moly, after seeing her descend today, I think, Betsy, you're totally right. Like, the descending could actually almost be more of the deciding factor, especially if one of the good descenders can get even a tiny gap at the top of the climb and then take it down. Could be super interesting. So fingers crossed. I mean, it's such a tight top 10 in the GC right now. I am kind of hoping that by tomorrow there's a little bit more separation, because while I love it coming down to 4 seconds, I don't know. I kind of want to see a little bit more drama in the standings.
Tomorrow does finish on right after descent on a flat finish. And Molly, you like that? I can see your eyes are already lighting up.
Love a flat finish.
Yeah? Why? Can you explain that to the listeners?
Well, I think it's just because that way you get the better sprints when it actually does end in a sprint, which obviously tomorrow the odds of that are quite minimal unless it's just a couple people in one. But I just find the uphill ones are much more boring on the flat stages, and I don't know why they ever have them at the end of a flat stage. It just seems silly to me when you have the opportunity for a really good sprint. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I think it's so dramatic, like a finish on a top of a climb. It makes for really cool scenery. Yeah. But we do get that at the end of this tour. So
I love a mountaintop finish. Like, let me I want it flat or at the top of a mountain. I don't want anything in between.
Yeah, I do have to say that I've been really enjoying the course design so far in this tour. I think we're in stage 5 and it's been so exciting, and we've been getting different winners and different dynamics happening. What do you all think of the course so far?
I think I agree. I mean, it's also been fairly technical, I think, which you can't always tell when you get the road book and you see the profiles and you look at the stats. You can't always tell, like, well, what are these roads actually like? How tight are they? How narrow are they? How many roundabouts are there? And that's sort of the beauty of watching it too. I'm so thankful we now have better televised access to these races, is that like you can actually see just how technical some of these parkours are.
100%. Okay, well, let's wrap up there. Everyone can get ready to head into the mountains. And of course, make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. It is super helpful. So appreciate everyone that's done that already. Share us with a friend. Find us over on queenstage.cc on Instagram and share your questions with us. No dumb questions. So let us know what you want to hear about, and we will see you tomorrow.
Watch the femmes.